It's Friday. You know what that means. History, dinosaurs, and football. Welcome to Planet Earth. Mr. H hanging out here with you because, well, I got nothing else to do on a Friday. That's okay, because if I'm going to hang out with anybody, it's going to be you. So how you guys doing, huh? Last week it went by really fast. This week seemed kind of slow, but, it's still 7 days. You know what they say, 7 days on the east side is 7 days on the west side. But, still, we got everything done that we meant to go out and get done. And I did something unusual, something you don't see people doing very often. What's that? Yeah, I read a book. Actually, disclosure, I read the Kindle version of this. But I do have this book, Red Storm Rising. As you can see, I've had it for a while. It's a book about a hypothetical war between the United States and Soviet Union. Tells you how old this thing is. Back in the late 80s. This book was written in 1986 there by Tom Clancy. Soviet Union fell apart in 91. Is a book supposed to be about the near future? So, it's basically as up to date as you could imagine. It's pretty good. Even West Point reads it for a depiction of modern warfare, though that might have changed a little bit now with drones and stuff. But hey, nonetheless, Red Storm Rising is a pretty interesting book. I try not to give you too many spoilers. The war starts because a Islamic terrorist attack takes out the main oil refinery in Siberia. So Soviet Union is very short on oil, and they're not sure what to do. And to me, it seemed pretty obvious. I mean, it's the Soviet Union; you got weapons all over the place. So why don't you just trade weapons with people for oil? I mean, that's kind of what they did anyway. And it's not like they're lacking weapons or anything. And well, it's told from the view of one of the junior members on the Politburo. So they said they'll think about it. He comes back the next morning. They're still there, and they've come up with this crazy idea of attacking NATO and then taking on the Persian Gulf. And my first thought is, how much vodka have you been drinking all morning on an empty stomach to come up with a crazy plan like this? But they've decided to go forth with it. And the launch date is June the 15th. Why is that important? Because my birthday is June the 16th. So happy birthday, Third World War. That was the original cover. I like this one better. This looks like a battle you would see in late 80s Germany someplace, right? So how does this thing turn out? Well, it's realistic in the fact you can tell this is definitely a map from the 80s over here. I mean, you can see East and West Germany over there, and over here is Afghanistan under Soviet domination. The Soviet Union historically throws everything it's got on one front against the enemy, hoping the enemy is either badly outnumbered or distracted. In the case of NATO, right, the strongest members, the entire ocean away. So, they think they're going to do pretty well. And as you can see by this map, it doesn't really go that well. I tried to blow it up here for you so you can see it in Germany. Yeah, that didn't go too well, but you can tell they didn't get too far, right? All right. Surprise! Every war is a surprise because it never goes the way you think it's going to go. Why? You're fighting an enemy who's not cooperating with you, right? Now, this defense minister, the guy's been slugging vodka all night, says very casually they could defeat NATO in 2 weeks and turn around and go after the Persian Gulf. As you can tell, it's not going to go. When I read the book, I came up with, I think, 31 days of war. I might have missed a couple here and there. So, as you can imagine, they fought very hard in Germany. It didn't quite go the way the Russians thought it would go. NATO is fighting very hard, running low on supplies, but, they're holding them back, more or less. And it's just not easy. The air battle is about the same. NATO dominates the night, but, daytime is pretty even fight. Here's what even though the Soviet Union gets surprised, NATO gets surprised too. NATO has a huge, advantage, naval power, and somehow the supposedly dullard Soviet adversary kind of catches NATO off guard because they take Iceland. Yeah, didn't see that coming. They launch an entire airborne division that takes Iceland, along with a few ships that were disguised. They landed, boom, it's Iceland. Why do they need Iceland so much? Because all these supplies coming through here? Right? You get attacked by airplanes. So instead of, the airplanes and the missiles coming all the way over here getting attacked, they're just going to attack from Iceland. And that causes a lot of problems, and it makes this war a lot closer than it should be. The Russians are having trouble advancing, but they are moving. NATO is holding them back. but it's not that easy. But it seems to be a stalemate. But with this thing going on in Iceland, there's a possibility they can cut off the supply lines coming from the U.S. Like I said, wars never go the way anybody expects them to go. Here's a picture east of West Germany. A little bit easier. I can tell you kind of where they're trying to get to the Weser River. The Weser River is here someplace. So after a month, this is about as far as they've gotten. Okay, so NATO is straining to hold them. The Russians are taking casualties, are still advancing. It's kind of a stalemate. Like I said, you're advancing, but it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory. And we don't know how much of West Germany is going to be left after this alleged victory. At the end of the day, the Russians do kind of get stopped over here. The NATO is attempting to push them back, but then when they have a coup in the Soviet Union, they tell them there's going to be a peace treaty, and they say we can push it back in 2 weeks, and they say we can go nuclear, so everybody decides it's a good idea just to call it a day, and everybody goes back to their neutral corners. A little bit of a spoiler alert right there. Here was the Soviet plan that they were going to use to invade Germany, probably. Right? This is stuff people have come together. And I don't know if this would have worked. As you can tell, they're going to smash their way here. Now, here's the Fulda Gap. This is a very tough place to play. Think Thermopylae. But it doesn't matter. They keep the Americans, so you see Americans here pinned down, and they hit the North European plain through the West Germans, the Dutch, and the British. All right? And that's where everything was happening during Red Storm Rising. Mostly up here. We didn't hear much about the Fulda Gap. Also had a plan here for Czechoslovakia to try to attack southern part of West Germany, but the book didn't really cover that. We didn't see them. Would you trust Czechoslovakia to do that against their will with the Russians right here behind them? Yeah, I don't know. And Poland's supposed to launch a naval attack on Denmark. Maybe they could pull it off, but, not with the Soviet overlords telling them to do it. So I think it was realistic, and I think that's how it would have gone. Had they gone nuclear, no point reading a book. No one would live through it. Hey, they made a game called Red Storm Rising, late 80s, early 90s. I played this one time and succeeded in killing a whale. Yeah, as you guessed, I didn't play this game very much. Oh, man, look at these games. They're nothing like they are today, man. They're much better today. I didn't know there was a board game for Red Storm Rising, so I guess if you ever want to see how it goes and play the same scenario and see what you could do different from either side, the NATO side or the Soviet side, Warsaw Pact, why don't you give it a shot and tell me how it goes? I might buy that thing too if I can find it cheap enough. Hey, let's talk about Utahraptor. Yep, here we go. We got the feathers versus scales debate. I got him there as feathered, very happy and dancing along. Everything is great with the world. And on the other side, we got the scaled version. Looks like they're communicating, talking, maybe about the Steelers. Who knows? So I decided to put both, the feathers and the scales. Me, I tend to take the middle road. Mostly scaled. Got a few feathers running around. Probably got the arms. I could see that working. Utahraptor is the biggest raptor that we know of. It's been described as the size of a polar bear. So look at this thing. If it stands up, it's got to be easily 7 feet tall if it stands up to its full height, which it wouldn't do very often. With the tail and everything there, we're looking at easy 16, 18 feet long. No problem. There's stupid Homo sapien over here just staring at it as it gets closer. Here's an idea, maybe run. You might not be able to outrun it, but if you move at right angles, maybe you can keep away from this thing. Of course, this is a raptor. What's the first thing you're looking at? Yeah, not even looking at the teeth. Look at these claws down here. That foot claw. 6 inches long. Some people have claimed to found some a foot long from Utahraptor. It's certainly big enough. Have you noticed something here about these bones? What do you know about these bones? They look pretty big, don't they? Yeah, so this isn't your light, agile, speed demon, raptor from Jurassic Park. This thing is pretty big. And I don't think it's a pursuit predator. I think this is an ambush predator. Yeah, and that horrifying look of sickle claw there, it's not just for ripping somebody open, though I'm sure they had no problem doing that. I think it's for pinning something down. And pin it down and do what? Yeah, these jaws look pretty bad, don't they? I mean, it's not T-Rex, but, it's pretty bad. So this is a fairly robust animal, about 7 feet tall, as we said, 16, 18 feet long, size of a polar bear, meaning a weight of about 1,100, 1,200 pounds. This thing doesn't, run its prey down. This is an ambush predator. It jumps out and smashes down on something. Um, I'm sure it can run pretty fast, but not like long distances. I think if you can keep away this thing about 40, 50 yards, it's not going to catch you. It can do some good bursts up to 25, 35 miles an hour. About 50 yards. After that, forget it. It's not going to catch anybody. There's a skeleton of it there at BYU. See, it doesn't just look too big to be a raptor. If it wasn't for that sickle claw, you'd think it's like an Allosaurus or something. So it's a big animal and probably pretty smart because if you looked at that skull, it's got a pretty big brain case. Now, was it a pack hunter? See, this is an interesting question. It seems, you don't see an animal that big usually as a pack hunter. Maybe it's a solitary hunter, but raptors seem to operate in groups. You always find fossils and footprints. Some people have thought maybe it hunts in a family group, mommy, daddy, and the kids. So maybe that's how it operates. Robert Backer here, the guy who wrote the Dinosaur Heresies way back in the late 70s. He wrote a book in 1996 called Raptor Red. I have that one too. He portrays them as in a family unit kind of thing. A lot of paleontologists didn't like it because paleontologists always find something to argue about. But, how are you supposed to know? It was 130 million years ago, right? So, living in Western North America 130 million years ago, Raptor Red gives us what we hope is some kind of insight into the Utahraptor. Dinosaur Heresy is the stuff that proved stuff wrong in 1978, and his new stuff in 1978 has since been proven wrong. But it's just a cool looking picture, There's Styracosaurus and T-Rex. Oh, no, they got 3 claws. What is that thing? I don't know. Could be Gigantosaurus. I don't know. Anyway, still a cool looking picture. PhD. See that? He wrote it here, but not there. PhD. Piled higher and deeper. Anyway, you know what? Maybe it's a pack hunter. Maybe it hunted in family groups. Who knows? Who cares? Just go out there and have some fun. And yes, I think they operated in cold weather. Let the screaming begin. Speaking of screaming, a lot of screaming in Steeltown. Oh, there often is a lot of screaming in Steeltown, but they actually had a reason today because they switched out the starting quarterback. Justin Fields been having kind of a rough time, and here comes Russell Wilson, the guy who's supposed to be starting in the beginning. And after the first period, he didn't look all that great, but hey, lo and behold, the second period began and 3 touchdowns. Steelers destroyed the Jets 37-15. Everybody is happy until next week. Well, maybe they'll still be happy after they beat the other New York team. Yep, first thing you're going to notice, what's with the uniforms? Look a little different. Mr. H, big on his uniforms here. What they were wearing against the Jets is the old school circa, they said 1975. If they say a decade, always pick the middle. So 1975-ish uniforms. If you notice, see, block numbers instead of italicized numbers. This patch was to commemorate the 1974 team that won the first Super Bowl. But their old school uniforms back in the 70s would not have had this on there. All right. Another thing you got to notice, the face mask. Old school's gray, new schoolish is black. Other than that, it looks like the same uniform. I mean, just from a, if you just casual glance, you wouldn't even notice a difference. Some trivia questions here for you. They start wearing black face masks in 1977. Yeah, write that down. Maybe you win a bar bet. As for the block numbers, they got rid of them after a 96 season. They put these italicized numbers. And for 1997, along with this patch up here in the shoulder, I don't know why. Did you forget what team you're playing for? I mean, I think you would know that, right? But, like I said, 2 uniforms, really not much of a difference. So somebody out there trying to make a quick $100 selling a vintage jersey that was made like a year ago. Now, the Steelers have the Giants coming up. The Steelers have not lost, and they're playing on a Monday night. So the Steelers have not lost a Monday night game in Pittsburgh since 1991. Yeah, and it was against the Giants. They lost 23-20. So hopefully I haven't jinxed anybody or released a curse on anyone or anything. So, but just in case someone like me has noticed this and broadcast it to the whole world, the Steelers have prepared a countermeasure. Yep, they're going to wear their Color Rush uniforms. Mr. H doesn't like alternate uniforms, but I got to admit, Steelers have the best looking one. All right, you got to like this. So it's Color Rush. Sometimes they call them a Demon Division uniform. What's a Demon Division? Well, why don't you read the book Heaven Steel and find out. Right? Read it when the Steelers are smashing the Giants into the ground, and read about the North Marchers elite formation called the Demon Division right there in Heaven Steel. And don't get one, but get two. That way you put them on the ground, you can do elevated push-ups, so you can join the Demon Division, right? So anyway, I'll talk some more about that next week, and then shout at you to buy the book again. But until then, you guys have yourself a fantastic weekend. I hope everything you plan to do works out for you. If it doesn't, hey, you can always start over tomorrow because the sun is going to rise again. And if the sun doesn't rise tomorrow, you've got worse problems, right? But until then, I will see you next week. Have yourself a great day, and das vidanya.